So listen, I know that I've put out 4 Mob Psycho videos in a row recently, but the Reigen Spinoff Manga the Reigen Spinoff Manga is something I took an embarrassingly long time to find out about after watching season 3, and I'm here today to say that you, fellow hypothetical Mob Psycho fan, should read it too. Also, I should probably preface this with a spoiler warning, spoilers for just all of Mob Psycho 100 and the spinoff. Also, the scans and translations I'm using in this video are from Kibidango scans, just to be clear. With only 7 chapters, this may seem like the equivalent of filler that doesn't add much to what we already know of the characters, yet it's surprisingly dense with material. If you're a fan of the characters that frequent spirits and such, this manga has a lot of content that builds on their characters more. The only exception to this is Mob, as he's absent for most of the spin-off studying math for his exams. So that would mean that this manga would be about Dimple, Serizawa, and mostly Reigen, right? That's right, probably one of the funniest things about this Reigen spinoff is that most of it is from Tome's point of view, despite the name. It does come full circle in due time, but it's still funny how Reigen can't even be the center of his own spinoff for most of it. It might seem confusing at first as to why Tome is here if the focus is mostly on the spirits and such crew, but the spinoff fills in the gap of time between the final arc of canon and the 6-month time skip it jumps to at the very end. So if anyone's had questions about how Tome ended up working at spirits and such, this spinoff is here to answer. The spinoff manga starts off with Tome as a first year in high school, hoping for something out of the ordinary to happen. She can't relate to the conversations her classmates have and feels distanced from everyone. She tells the audience that she has a secret, cool, hidden life, but it's actually just spirits and such. From where we start off in this spin-off manga, she's already been there a number of times asking Reigen for a job, but he keeps turning her away due to her lack of powers. She keeps insisting she can be helpful somehow in these exorcisms, but she's really just looking for a way to cure her day-to-day boredom. The problem, though, is that Tome keeps tagging along and trying to solve supernatural mysteries and unknowingly walking right into danger. Reigen isn't the best at keeping himself from getting hurt by the supernatural either, but he wants to at least keep Tome out of trouble as the adult figure here. At the same time, however, he's taken aback by the hopeful optimism Tome has and feels conflicted about the idea of crushing her dreams too suddenly. He tries to be as forward as possible without ruining her ideal of an entertaining lifestyle by subtly letting on that it's not as amazing as she thinks and dissuading her from joining them on exorcism jobs. But from a mix of Tome's unswaying enthusiasm and Reigen's reluctance to be too authoritarian, she ends up in supernatural situations anyways. She ends up trying to mention her cool new job at school and gets scolded by a teacher, but upon hearing her mention supernatural help, she's asked for advice about a lingering spirit staring at him. Despite Reigen advising her against getting directly involved, she jumps at the chance to resolve the issue herself, so Reigen pretends to transfer his power to her for protection. The lingering spirit turns out to be malevolent, and Tome ends up in danger of being thrown from a rooftop by it. Hey, hold on, aren't we forgetting about one of the characters in Spirits and such? Dimple swoops in to help by possessing her to force the spirit out and then flying up to eat the spirit. We learn that Reigen sent Dimple to keep watch in case anything went wrong, and this possession ends in Tome now being able to see Dimple. She proceeds to stampede into the Spirits and such office with a butterfly net to try capturing this strange green spirit, which is a very cool nod to her line in the Telepathy Club arc about the very same idea. I'm not sure what makes her think trying to capture supernatural beings in butterfly nets would work, because it doesn't. She's so real. Later, we see Tome approached by the most popular guy at school, but unsure of what he wants, she brings him the spirits and such in the same confused way many clients walk in to ask what to do about spirits. Like, she literally walks into the office like, hey, this popular guy's here, I don't know what he wants, help please? Why is Tome so true? The popular guy in question, Hoshida Origo, is revealed to be interested in the occult and works under a boss called Roshuto Dozen. Roshuto is implied to likely be a fake psychic, but openly brags about his connections to big names in the industry anyways. There's lots of jokes I'm sort of breezing over for time purposes, but I really like this one where Reigen makes up a spiritual power sensor and spiritual levels on the spot, leading to Roshuto worrying if it's something he's missed out on, and then later informing Jodo about it, which then makes Jodo wonder if he's missed something. Classic Reigen. Back to the plot though. Roshuto ropes the cast into an exorcism training event taking place in front of a haunted forest. Things soon get thrown off track as Hoshida is lured into the forest by an illusionary voice, and Tome follows. Tome and Hoshida find Reigen, who forcefully leads them through the forest, and it's quickly evident that this actually isn't Reigen. It starts dragging Tome and Hoshida along in this unnerving scene where they keep getting scratched by the branches surrounding them, and Hoshida cries and apologizes for bringing them into this danger. Luckily, Serizawa shows up just in time to exorcise the fake Reigen, and he, the real Reigen, and Dimple lead them out to safety through having used makeshift landmarks along the way. Yet again, this is a subtle nod to the Telepathy Club arc, since back when that happened, the group got lost in a forest without any clear landmarks made to help them know where they've been. This forest doesn't only have an illusionary effect, but also makes time move slower within it, and the group gradually navigates their way out. Once they're finally outside the forest, Reigen hears Tome's voice calling from inside, claiming to have gotten switched with a fake Tome. This is probably one of my favorite scenes from the spin-off, as when presented with the dilemma of how to tell which is the real Tome, Reigen asks a question only the real Tome could answer.
Answer one thing for me. Do you believe in extraterrestrials?
What now?
What's that?
A stone I received from an alien. I've met aliens, you see. They gave me this as a present. Isn't it pretty? I carry it with me everywhere.
Oh,
What's wrong? You don't believe me? I'm telling the truth.
You've convinced me. You can put that away.
The scene uses the gift Tome received from the aliens as both a way to help them out and a sweet reminder of how much she personally valued that experience. Hoshida, on the other hand, is pretty shaken up by what just happened, and Roshuto having left long ago leaves the concept of being betrayed by one's mentor up in the air. Since Reigen says that those who aren't strong enough to face the risks shouldn't get involved in this field of work, Tome starts aiming to be a psychic somehow, and that chapter ends with her forcibly bending spoons in the office. On another day, Tome questions Serizawa on how to obtain psychic powers, but he shifts the questioning onto her and what she would want them for. We see Serizawa's newfound insightfulness that he's developed over the series, as he reminisces on his lost youth and advises against becoming too tunnel-visioned on the concept of psychic powers. He'd been used to further cause destruction on the city in the past because of his lack of knowledge on the world, so he instead encourages Tome to expand her horizons and find something she can do with her own abilities. It's a very mature and nuanced stance from Serizawa, and we can tell he's been thinking about things a lot as he asks Tome why getting powers would change her normal habits. She's become fixated on the concept of psychic powers as some idealistic solution to her boredom, but Serizawa clarifies that they function more so as an extension of oneself, and that if she wasn't the type to, say, perform good deeds without powers, that likely wouldn't change if she suddenly got them. She sees his response as cold and dismissive, so his advice of branching out and finding what she can do as herself gets overlooked as she then turns to Dimple. Tome presses Dimple for answers to all sorts of spirit-related questions, and this plays out a lot more casually as instead of advice-seeking, she switches gears to information gathering. It's one of the funniest scenes in this spin-off, as Tome really hasn't had much of a chance to sit anyone down and ask rapid-fire questions like this, and Dimple gets the tables turned on him by being pestered instead of the one pestering. We get a few interesting bits of lore about Dimple, but the Q&A fizzles out as there's things even Dimple himself isn't sure of, and Tome's snide remark about him not knowing anything leads to him likening it to how humans don't know everything about their bodies or the world either. He basically just tells her, I don't know, I just work here. It's great. Despite its comedic nature, the scene ends in a similar way to the Serizawa conversation, with Dimple advising Tome to pay attention to the world she already lives in and is overlooking. Reigen pops into the office to round the chapter out, telling Tome that he wouldn't have been here today if not for the help of others. Still not getting the message, she ends up questioning him about his psychic abilities, to which she awkwardly brings up his salt splash move to answer with. He probably should have prefaced it with a don't try this at home kids, but you know. On another day, Tome talks to a classmate who believes a spirit is following her. She tries contacting Reigen, but the two miss each other, so Tome takes matters into her own hands by imitating Reigen's salt technique. It turns out to be a normal person that Tome and her classmate mistook for a spirit, and after Reigen finds out, he realizes how irresponsible he's been. Seeing Tome end up in a potentially risky situation again, as well as hurting an unrelated person, makes Reigen realize that even if it's disheartening to her aspirations, he needs to tell the truth about himself. He tells Tome that she shouldn't imitate him because he has no powers either. We see that same self-consciousness from the Telepathy Club arc peek through as Tome asks if she was made out to be a fool for chasing a fantasy, but Reigen simply answers that his normal self wouldn't be able to reach that ideal anyways. Back at school, Tome is at a loss over what to do, with both supernatural and natural leaving her with nothing. During another normal conversation though, she finds a paper from her classmate with stand-up comedy notes on it. Despite the classmate's embarrassment, Tome takes a genuine interest in her hobby and encourages her to share more. It leads to the others opening up as well about their own secret hobbies, as Tome realizes she's been too judgmental. Just as the canon finale emphasizes the theme that both sides of someone can have an unexpected merit, that duality and balance between both sides of one's life is important, the spin-off too proves this point. Mob had repressed the side of him with powers and had to work through accepting them over time in canon, but the spin-off is sort of the reverse. Tome shuts out her normal life upon starting high school with the assumption that her classmates are way too plain, and puts all of her energy into the supernatural side of her life alone. Mob learns throughout canon that he can use his powers to help people. And then on the other side of things, just as Serizawa advised earlier in the spin-off, Tome learns that there's things she can help with because she's Tome, and helps her classmates share their hobbies with each other. When her classmates open up about their interests, it's done with an initial reluctance because they didn't think anyone else would be like that either, just as Tome didn't, but they all take that step to being more honest about their real selves and feel accepted and relieved as a result. Tome resolves to apologize to those at Spirits and such upon the realization that she'd brushed off their advice that she should pay more attention to the world she'd been overlooking. Unfortunately, the only one at the office is Roshuto, who passes a curse onto her. The curse is called Rusty-sama, and it latches onto someone and drains them of their life energy until they pass it on to someone else. Reigen, Serizawa, and Dimple show up, and the latter two try and fail to detach it from her with their powers. Roshuto whines about it being impossible to get rid of without simply passing it on to someone else. Just as he used his connections for nothing but his own gain, his connections want nothing to do with him and his time time of need. He had abandoned the others in the forest when they were in danger, and just now when he was in danger, passed it on to Tome without much of a sign of remorse. You know, I'm really starting to think this guy's kinda shitty. Tome apologizes to Reigen for not being careful to avoid danger all those times before, but as he said in the previous chapter, he feels at fault for letting things get to this point. Reigen calls for help, but also knows that the situation doesn't have much time to work with, and that Tome doesn't deserve to bear the brunt of this curse. Powerless and normal, he simply takes the curse onto himself in place of Tome, and does what he can with what little resources he has. He goes into the illusion forest while bearing the curse to make use of its time dilation effects. Despite his disheveled condition, Reigen manages to trick Rusty Sama into turning around, putting it at the forest mimicry spirit's mercy, though he does end up losing his sense of direction in the forest, and encounters Mob, who is off-puttingly eerie, just as the fake Reigen in the previous forest incident was. But just in time, the real Mob finally appears to exorcise it. Reigen and Mob go back and forth a bit, until compromising that Reigen can make up for the sudden notice emergency call by teaching him math equations that he's been struggling with, along with a treat to some ramen. The manga ends with Tome dropping by the spirits and such office to ask if her friends can visit later for consultations. Despite how busy the place is, Reigen juggles conversations between everyone while still placing the reservation Tome asked of him. Tome thinks to herself about how unique Reigen's connections are, and that her own life is like that too. Interesting and full of surprises. For a spin-off that's only 7 chapters, there really is so much material. It has a lot of jokes that I enjoyed, and is really worth thoroughly reading a few times, as there are some easily missable panels that are really silly in my opinion. Lots of panels work well as meme or reaction image material too, which is always a plus. And on the other side of the coin, there's a surprising amount of horror here as well, with the spirit haunting the teacher, the forest mimicry spirit, and Rusty Sama looking exceptionally scary a good amount of the time. It really speaks to how far one's art has come to see such intricately drawn spirits. Though what sticks out the most about this spin-off manga to me is the amount of character enrichment. Dimple had become sort of aimless again after losing his goal during the Divine Tree arc, and we see here that he's been good about taking it in stride. Since Mob's busy studying for his exams and Dimple wouldn't be of much help there, he sticks around the office and is a more cooperative member of spirits and such. Seizawa's grown so much to the point that he's been researching and doing a lot of introspection on his own time. There are also several points in this spin-off where we see him readily helping those who need it, namely Hoshida and Tome. He had been ashamed over staying passive and not helping Sho enough back in the World Domination arc, so it's heartwarming that he's become confident enough to be a reliable mentor figure on top of his self-actualization. Reigen struggles to keep Tome safe while being aware that crushing her dreams would be heartless. His conversation with her in chapter 5 takes an interesting turn into career talk, as he subtly refers back to how Mob's optimism and later the others' help had gotten him to where he is today. Whereas early in the series canon he'd been restrictive and harsh at times, he's grown into a much more considerate mentor. Tome goes through the biggest arc in this spin-off, with the aforementioned realization that both sides of her life can be unexpectedly fulfilling. Her arc in series canon had been that of chasing a fantasy she didn't expect to come true but did alongside her friends, but she enters high school practically alone in this spin-off. I already talked about it earlier, but she gradually learns to strike a balance between natural and supernatural, as the series' recurring theme of the importance of duality is well demonstrated yet again. As of making this video, there seems to be little to no hope of this spin-off getting adapted into anime form anytime soon, so it's very easy for it to go unnoticed by Mob Psycho 100 fans. But it was very satisfying to have seen that gap of time between the final arc and time skip be filled in, as well as the evolution of spirits and such as time passes. So basically, what I'm trying to say, in summary, in short, TLDR, please read the Reigen spin-off manga, it's very cool. Thank you dearly for making it to the end of this video. I will now present the reasons this Reigen spin-off manga should be adapted into an anime. Reason 1, Tome. Reason 2, Tome True. Reason 3, character development. Reason 4, that dimple possession scene is way too cool to be overlooked. Reason 5, many jokes I need to see adapted now. Reason 6, scary. Reason 7, I need to see what color hair Tome's classmates have. 3 of them have ambiguously colored hair, and I've not gotten any colored illustrations of them so far, so I am sat here wondering, how do I draw them? Also, I need the funny bug-eating girl to be adapted into anime form. She needs to be known. Reason 8, I need to know what color this outfit is. Here's my guess. Reason 9, that scene where they escape the forest and Tome's proven to be her real self because she pulls out the space artifact she got as a present from the aliens is really cool. I didn't ask my friends for help with dubbing it and making it look really cool in the video for no reason. I really do like this scene. And finally, reason 10, I need the world to know about this shitty man Roshuto. We need more Roshuto haters in the world. This man can't keep getting away with this. Why does he drop by the office in the end? Please leave. All these reasons and more are why the Reigen spin-off manga should be adapted into an anime form. Please, I'll drop the bit, I'll drop the dumb bit, I'll drop the bit. Please just adapt it into an anime, please. I don't care when it is, just please.